Hello, everyone. So there has been a hot topic out there in regards to portals. I guess a lot of people don't understand what portals are. There's a misunderstanding of portals in general, and we've had quite a bit of feedback in terms of questions about portals. So we are here today to discuss what portals are and to give more insight to all of you in that regard. Okay, perfect. So who wants to start?
So I discovered how to tap into portals about 5 years ago with the Lionsgate portal in August. And it was incredible if you are attuned to it, which is really just setting the intention and knowing what that portal is amplifying or bringing. The way I would define a portal is almost like light codes that are coming down from the universe that are activating parts of us that are asleep, that we are ready to awaken to. So, in order to awaken to a higher frequency, there's also a cosmic detox. So, it's like a combination of releasing what no longer serves us and then awakening parts of us that are ready to be seen, amplifying our gifts and increase in wisdom, our energy, our vibration, things like that.
That's an awesome explanation. So, in terms of other questions in regards to portals, would anyone like to elaborate in terms of location, like where they come from, or I can even answer that question. So, essentially, portals are created multi-universally from divine councils that are placed in our field who know that we are now ready to serve certain aspects of ourselves, perhaps even bringing certain aspects of ourselves back to this current dimensional realm and reality. So, what does that actually mean? That actually means that your guides are like, okay, hey, she's ready. She's ready to take the next step. She's ready to ascend now. So, let us open up this portal for her, bringing in these light codes that Arzina has actually mentioned and bringing that within our being so that we're able to open up and expand. It's a form of expansion. Perhaps it's also about activation as well. So, activations help with us remembering who we are, us remembering certain gifts that perhaps were dormant for such a long period of time. Perhaps it's, bringing in certain connections with certain beings as well. But it's essentially, when they show me portals are also created as stars would be created. And so there's like opening. So that's why some people on this planet, they do see portals opening. Portals are in different shapes, forms as well. So, for example, there's a lot of portals in mirrors. Was saying that in terms of that type of portal, beings can come and go. So, for example, a lot of people have mentioned in terms of their experiences is that, on the spiritual realm of things, they feel like their washroom is a portal because of these beings coming in from the washroom, from the mirrors. And in that regard as well, perhaps that's also why they recommend you not having a mirror in your room in terms of feng shui. It's across all cultures, actually, where there's certain placements of where to put mirrors. Mirrors are a really strong place of where portals can come and go. They can open. And just because there's a how do I say it? There's an energy surrounding the glass in the mirror, which is actually really interesting for a lot of people to be aware of in that regard. And that's why there's this whole i.e. feng shui of where the mirrors are placed as energies and beings can be trapped based on the location of those mirrors. So that's kind of, out there. But at the same time, a lot of people aren't fully aware of that portals can open. There are also people who are chosen or beings that are chosen to actually open portals on a regular basis, but they come from another realm and reality and dimension. But even that in itself are portals in itself, if that makes sense.
So, how do we know when we are opening a portal, right? So, if we're not conscious of it,
Mhm.
then my question would be, how do we know that we're doing it? Because is it possible to open a portal that is aligned with a lower frequency?
So can I like add to that? So crystals, even crystal grids, can actually open portals. So you play around with the crystals, and some grids feel so light, and like you can feel the intention of the grid of the beings that will pass through the grid, they'll feel lighter. But some people, they're not aware that when they're creating grids, they can create portals that perhaps like entities or like things that are not serving can pass through. Actually, all portals are kind of like that to set the intention that things that are non-benevolent don't pass through it. So anyone actually could create portals. Like I'm sure that there's people out there that create grids, like crystal grids, and they don't know that they're creating a portal, but they are. And so you just gotta feel into the energy of like the portal because there are grounding ones and some even like elementals. It's kind of like a gateway, right? So they'll like think, oh wow, like what's that light? And then they'll just pass through it and then they're like suddenly in your home. I guess it just depends. It's so interesting because I was actually guided to put like a grid on the back just today, and I was like, oh, I don't have a nail. But anyway, it's to show how grids look like. So, yeah, they could be like that, or you can open portals in your sleep. Like I've heard about that too, like subconsciously, you don't know. And then when you wake up, it's like, wow, this room feels a little heavy. Like what's going on? And then you see,
So
oh yeah, that's that black
yeah.
opening, right?
And my son does that a lot because he loves movies.
Oh,
So I catch him, he's just using his imagination, right? Because he watched a movie and he's all of a sudden imagining portals opening up, but he doesn't realize it's a portal. There's a lot of sci-fi type of energy that comes through, and he'll have the most vivid dreams, right? And so I had to talk to him and say, you know, maybe you want to tone it down a little bit, or, just ask before you invite these beings in. And he's like, no, it's just a movie. Like, I'm just using my imagination. I'm like, I know you think you are, but there's a lot of energy that is so easy to tap into that our intentions really matter, like, really, really matter. So, yeah,
yeah,
very
like
cool.
I know, like there's like portals that are open around the world. There's light workers that work on the grid system of Gaia, and they'll change the grids by these portals. So they'll drop like a crystal on top of the grid line to clear something, to clear some, like a stagnancy or something like that, right, on the grid line and to shift the frequency of that area. So
Nice.
that's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I
Lake
find it so
Louise.
fascinating because I've only known portals very primitively, I guess, just through like Lionsgate 12/12. There's a portal tomorrow, December 12th. And so, from what I'm hearing, it's that it is energy and it is intention. So, from the crystals, there's certain crystals that will amplify a certain energy, the same way that numbers also have an energy and frequency, right? Which will then open up another portal. I'm wondering how, and I'm just curious, how there's certain portals or places on the earth that are chosen. Who are those chosen by? Everyone knows Sedona, Arizona. Like, how was that created? How were certain spots in the world where we are now? How were they chosen? And what is it maybe about the energy there? Like I've heard, things like there's spaceships and stuff in Arizona. There's people who channel light beings in certain parts of the world. Is there something or someone that has any knowledge on how they were specifically placed in the world?
Yeah, for sure. So essentially, those areas that were chosen is, how do I say this? Beings of light, as well as it's almost like the councils of light, essentially, is what they're showing me. They've chosen these areas because there's no veil in these areas. So essentially, the energies of those areas, it's like the most open. It's almost
Mhm.
as though they've created hubs, if that makes sense, where they've created certain areas where the earth is more susceptible and it's easily more accessible to be able to not just access, but also to open up the connection with other dimensions, realms, and realities.
Mhm.
And at the same time, this is what they're showing me as well, is that there's a certain vibration and frequency that gets emitted from these areas as well. So perhaps these were the areas where, in terms of star technology, and like for example, star technology, there's the AI, so that would be an example of like star technology that's out there
Mhm.
that they've placed these, how do I say this? a space where they've created sacred spaces in these areas and grid systems as well that is not visible to the human eye, essentially. And with saying that, they've connected that to other areas, like, for example, Mount Shasta, right? So that's another place. There's also Hawaii, right? Where there's the heart portal. But essentially, they've created these portals because it resonates with certain beings that have actually resided there before the humans actually came.
And I
Mhm.
believe they're aligned with the constellations as well, right? Like, isn't it like there's a map of the constellations that reflect on the Earth grid? And then there's
Mhm.
certain ley lines or energetic points that intersect. And that's where that vortex or that portal is kind of opened up and amplified. And then it's associated with your chakras, right? So there's like
Mhm.
Sedona is the throat chakra, I believe, and Hawaii is the heart chakra. And so when you enter those vortexes, it's healing that part of you, but it's also downloading a lot of information or activating parts of you in that area. Have you heard anything like that? Because I think NASA does a lot of research around that, from what I understand, which is very cool with the aliens and the beings. Which another thing, when I was in Sedona, we had somebody talk to us about aliens and spaceships and stuff, and we had seen them. So it was really neat. But they're just on a different frequency. So even though they're coming through these portals, not everybody sees them because they're at such a high vibration that they don't have a physical form, but they exist in every reality. So it's just interesting how, I don't know if you're finding, but this year with all the portals that have opened up, right? Because there's been a lot of energy coming down, I have found that the veil is a lot thinner and it's easier to sense beings or sense energy around us, both positive and negative. So do you find that, especially with the portal opening up tomorrow, right? Like,
I
have you?
think I can totally relate to that. And I can relate to just traveling frequently from different places. Even if I'm at like a layover, if I land in a certain airport, I can tell the energy of the airport. It's so different from like Calgary to Chicago to Dallas to Hawaii. I'm sure we've all been places, we've all traveled even on vacation, and it's more than just, we're going to relax, but there is something about the energy in certain places that you can just sense. And I think that's so interesting. And coming to me now, it's just Spirit's really wanting me to say, maybe you guys can verify, they're also saying that we're portals. So they're almost saying like if people feel called to a certain place, even if it maybe isn't what they would have hoped or what they would traditionally choose to say go somewhere or go to even a certain event, Spirit's almost saying sometimes you're chosen to be that portal, to anchor in the light within that community, within that event. Do you know what I mean? And so I don't know if you guys have ever found yourself. I know I've kind of found myself sometimes in spaces where I was just like, this is just not my vibe. I'm not even sure why I'm here. What they're saying is sometimes we can act as those portals. Like sometimes we're like divinely guided, maybe not even in our consciousness, to just be in a certain space, to almost hold the space for other people, or to maybe activate our throat chakra and talk about certain things in order to spread light. So I'm wondering if all the changes that you're saying, Arzine, that are coming, it's like it's also because individually each of us are acting as mini portals to thin the veil even more. As we know, there's a lot of people coming into the spiritual work, which could be a good and bad thing. I know sometimes I think, do people think it's trending that now, they just want to start talking about crystals and beings? But we're saying, yeah, literally anyone can be even a portal if you connect with that frequency. So I don't know if you guys have had that experience, but I know for sure I found myself in situations where I'm like, I'm not even sure why I'm here. And they're saying it's because you were chosen as a portal.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I've for sure had that experience. So I was guided to go to Stonehenge, and everyone knows, oh, Stonehenge is a portal. And like, yeah, great, high vibes, make sure, you tap into the sacredness of like Stonehenge. And they're just like, right before I left Calgary, because I'm based out of Calgary, they're just like, be prepared. It's not going to be as it seems. And I'm like, what?
Mhm.
I'm like, what is happening right now? And so I ended up going there and it was heavy. It was so heavy. And it's as though like people think that just because they're portals, oh, we could just release everything here. Let's just dump all of our crap here because it'll be cleansed anyway. So there's like, how do I say it?
Mm.
It's almost like there's a misconception of these portals, essentially. Yes, they are sacred, but at the same time, they don't necessarily cleanse people as people are thinking that they do. And so essentially for me, like I was brought there to clear it out, to actually cleanse the space so that it was able to, and the beings were able to reconnect through that portal and to clear out, whoever has actually stepped into the center of that portal. It's almost like doing maintenance, if that makes sense. So I was pretty much doing maintenance, but that's essentially part of my work of why I was there. And it's interesting because I had, other light workers and other, friends and like acquaintances that reached out to me. And they're just saying, I guess when I was there, when I was doing this work, I was sending them like an SOS. And which is really interesting because they're like, oh yeah, you were sending like an SOS to hold space as you were doing this work. So essentially, I was also a portal where people were able to channel through me and to know that Stonehenge needed some maintenance or needed some help in terms of perhaps reactivating certain areas of it or clearing it or whatever it is that it needed. So I feel like, yeah, absolutely. And yes, absolutely, that's true that we can definitely be a portal. But not only that, depending on your gifts, there are certain people that can use, different areas of their body, for example, to help open up portals for other people, or they can also transmute. So for me, when I transmute energy, it actually runs through a portal. So I burp it out, but that actually gets exited through a portal, which is really interesting. A lot of people probably don't see that, but I see it. And this is the thing too, or when you meet someone and you feel like they're opening your heart or whatever. And so that in itself, they have a
Amazing.
portal within their heart.
I had a question. You were talking about how you were helping clear the space, clear the portal.
Yeah.
So I think question would come up for various people that aren't beings more powerful than us? So why would we, the human, have to clear it when it's such a sacred space to begin with and there's so much energy there? Why can't they clear it? Like why is it toxic or why is it, congested or whatever the case may be? How is it that we have that power to do that?
Yeah, no, for sure. So the reason why we have the power to do that is because it's in our realm and reality. So it's on Earth. It's almost like it's our base, essentially, right? These beings, a lot of them are here to observe. They've kind of already planted the seed. They've kind of already placed a space, a hub where other beings can access the Earth. They've placed a connection between humans and star seeds and alike, other beings as well, to connect with these different frequencies and energies through these portals. But essentially, they're watching what it is that we can do as a race, but also as multidimensional beings, because that's also who we are. We're also multidimensional beings. So it's almost like a learning piece as well for us in terms of how much do we actually care about Mother Nature or Gaia, essentially? Are we working in unison with the earth, or are we working for our own benefit? And I think that's where there's the fine line, because when people do just dump their stuff, or maybe they don't intend it, and they just go there and like, oh, I feel great. It's almost like getting a phone call from a really good friend, and then they call you, and then you feel so drained after because they just dumped their entire life. Which is not a bad thing. But there's this expectation that these portals are all high vibe. But essentially, just like we are, sometimes it's just too much for these portals to handle, especially if the portals are on this frequency and the people going there are in this frequency. So it's like not pulling the portal down, but it's the energies surrounding that. And that gets amplified because it is an actual portal. Does that make sense?
It does. It
Yeah.
does. That resonates. And I'm not sure how to articulate this, but the natives, but also Aboriginals, just came to mind just really intensely on how they cared for the land, the entire land as a sacred space, but also the animals on it and the wind, the earth, like all the elements. So as you were speaking that, I could feel this beautiful kind of influx of energy from them, from the keepers of the earth, so to speak. Yeah, just kind of also protecting the land. Like we're not alone in it,
Mhm.
which is neat. And the way you described it as we have access to this type of energy or portals or sacred sites, but the beings are also giving us the freedom to play with it, to see what it does or how we can connect to it. So that's kind of exciting. That's fun.
Yeah, no, for
Maybe it'd be
sure.
important, maybe it'd be important for like our viewers to know if you guys know what would be, I guess, for the highest good for somebody, say, going to a portal to feel an activation, to get the cleansing. Is there a way that we can do it that also maybe recycles the energy so it doesn't feel so heavy when they leave? Is there something that we can be doing to serve, I guess, the greater good for everybody when we go? So as we go to cleanse and we receive the activation, what can we do before we leave in order to keep the energy? Do
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, is there a way that we can not leave it so heavy with all of our stuff? Like the person at the end of the phone call, what should we be doing? Maybe that'd be helpful for people to know.
Yeah. So when I actually check in, what people can actually do is they can really express gratitude.
Oh, that's so, yeah, that's
Actually,
so,
Mm,
thank you.
okay.
there's that.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
because a lot of people, once they, and perhaps it's just an ego thing, right? They just think, they get it and they're like, okay, see you later, sayonara, I'm out
Right,
here.
right.
I'm in a great space. Like it's almost like it goes back into the ego. But when you actually express gratitude and you're like, okay, thank
That's right.
you. And like, not just saying thank you, but essentially feeling it in your being that you are
Hmm.
truly thankful for receiving this. And
Mm,
that whatever you've received, you're reflecting it back to the earth, essentially. And
mhm.
that in itself is a form of cleansing, if that makes sense. So it's the intention. We're working together as one. I think that's really important for people to know the expression of gratitude, the expression of love, because normally when you get cleansed or get activations, you feel a sense of peace, you feel a sense of love, you feel a
Mm,
sense of the higher frequencies that are surrounding you. And essentially, that can also be reflected back onto the planet by raising, and that actually in itself raises the vibration of the actual planet. And that actually helps recycle it naturally. When we think of naturally, if I were to go into 3D, we think of like the recycling bin, someone having to recycle it. But essentially, energy is energy. And so long as we set that intention, all of the things that perhaps we may have dropped in that area or in that space, we can even just set the intention that that all just be released and just be transmuted into light, or even envisioning that things just get dissolved, almost like fairy dust or pixie dust, essentially. Just all of that get dissolved. That's also how you can also express your gratitude, is really feeling into that energy.
I do that a lot when I go for walks. There's a lot of beautiful parks here. I walk and I think, right? And I'm trying to release or make sense of whatever this negative energy feeling I'm having. And as I'm processing, I'm also very present. So I'm also connecting to the earth, to the trees, the sky, the birds, like whatever the nature is that I'm in. And so there's this overwhelming kind of receiving of
mhm.
the beauty of it, but it's like it's feeding me in order to release. And then I release. And then I go back into that gratitude. But like you said, that fairy dust, I intend whatever I'm releasing to dissolve and transmute into a higher vibration. But then I notice my joy starts to increase a lot more and I'm not as heavy, right? You know how they say spend time in nature, go for walks, put your feet in the ground, things like that. And I think it's because there's this energy that's emitting from the earth or from nature that's inviting us to tap into it, but to your point, also with the intention of dissolving it. So it's not just about dumping it, it's about how do I use the energy that's around me, available to me, to detox, to cleanse, release whatever it is to a higher vibration so that I'm not leaving it for the next person, right? To
Right.
pick up. Yeah, because you can't destroy energy. So, yeah. So I like that. That's beautiful.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and that's essentially what it is. But my question, though, and I'm sure that not even my question, but I'm getting the message, the collective question is, what is this 12-12 about? Like,
Yeah.
like what is it about? Like, there's just like, oh, great, it's 12-12, big deal. I mean,
Yeah, I would
what?
love to hear everyone's perspectives. It sounds like we all might have a different take on it. And I think that all of us collectively will kind of come to the same message, but I'd love to hear. I mean, I have some hits on what it is just by channeling the energy through, but I'd love to hear from you guys what you think the 12/12 tomorrow is about.
Who
Anyone?
wants to go?
Artina, I think you want to go. I think you
Yeah.
want to go, girl.
Okay, so I know astrologically, Jupiter, the planet of abundance and expansion, is aligning with the moon, but then also there's a ton of solar flares. So it's almost like this abundant awakening if
Mhm.
we're open to it, right? So we have free will, but we have to be open to this frequency and this energy. You look at December just in general, and December is a very heart-centered month, right? It's all about unity, kind of collective aspect. Families are gathering, a lot of people are celebrating, but then also everyone's beliefs are heightened, right? They're excited about the new year. They're like ready to release, this year. It's almost like they're setting new intentions, right? So everyone's energy or frequency is higher at this time of year, right? And there's a lot of giving and receiving with the gifts and the food and all of that. So I feel like the portal tomorrow is a beautiful one. I really feel like it's full of abundance and expansion if we're in that vibration, because we're also close to the full moon. So, full moon is about releasing and bringing to the surface the stuff that we're ready to see. So, I feel like it could go either way. If we're not in the vibration of joy, happiness, peace, all that, then we're going to tune into the expansion of the lower energy, right?
Mhm.
Versus the higher one. But if we have this intention or knowing that tomorrow is about expansion and abundance and stepping into our authentic self to enter the new year, then I think we just receive more of that. So, yeah, that's my feeling for tomorrow.
That's awesome. What do you think, Mary Rose?
When I tune into the energy of it, the way that they show me the 12/12, it's like, to Arzene's point, avenues are opening up. Like they're just showing me the ones that like there's so many avenues opening up, but the combination of the two, it almost like it needs to be balanced. So there's a lot of people who have all of these intentions, but it's their commitment to it that really just will bring about balance. So it's almost like people can jump timelines, if you will, and go from here to here, metaphorically speaking. But there has to be some level of commitment that will even out I guess, the receiving. So it's like setting our intention, we're setting all these goals and we're going to go for it because we know the lanes are open. Like all of these avenues are all open in front of us. But it's unless that we can actually embody it and be, how do you say, they keep talking to me about a commitment. Like it's a commitment thing. And in order for you to really commit to it, that's when they're like, okay, then you will receive. But there also is, they just keep telling me balance. There has to be some level of balance where it's not a lot of like, all the lanes are open, so we're just gonna fight and push our way through it. It's like, how are we gonna just still stay in our essence, stay in our grace, not get too caught up in, I guess, outcomes, but just come back to remembering why we want it in the first place. So it is a very activating, exciting time, but it almost seems like it has to be balanced out with the grounding, coming back to our why, not overly having all these expectations and these outcomes that we're going to be so attached to. But I guess just really, yeah, I guess it's a give and take. Do you know what I mean? Like putting the energy, the intention out there and also being able to receive. So
Yeah.
sitting back when things get quiet and you think things aren't moving, having faith that things are moving, like step back. Maybe that's how they show me balance. I'd love to hear your perspectives.
I can feel that. I can definitely feel that because I have found just the last couple of days, I'll be out of body very fast and I'll have to consciously ground myself. And even
Oh,
then, even then it's like, oh my God, I'm getting pulled away. So I agree. That balance energy feels really good.
because, like you said, everything is happening so quick and everything's open. Like, this is like a time where literally when you want something, it comes quick. But where can we still stay in our, like, and I don't even want to say humanness, but where can we stay in our grace so we're able to receive? So we're not so clouded by all of the outside. How can we just stay in that place? And I'm like you, I was talking to a girlfriend, I think it was yesterday. I find myself having to meditate 3 times a day now. I'm just feeling that like buzz inside my body that I'm like, I did my morning meditation. I'll usually do one and I usually will double them up. Like I usually do like a morning one, and now I'm doing them back to back to just feel like I'm still here. Like I'm still can pull myself down. But to your point, there's so many things outside of me that are vying for my attention.
Yes.
Everyone, like this person, you know what I mean? And maybe it is the holidays. So it'll be interesting. I love how everything's opening up for people. I wonder how we're going to allow ourselves to receive, because I think that might be the hard part.
Yeah, and I think that's where manifestation comes from. You have to be open to receive, right? Otherwise,
Yeah.
you're just setting
It's
intention.
not us doing, it's
No.
like we need to receive,
Yeah,
right? It's like co-creating. This is
yeah,
true definition of co-creation.
yeah.
Yeah.
Which makes sense why, in sacred sites, when we visit them or we go to temples or church sites, whatever, it's about being quiet and going within.
Yeah.
It's not about the
Mhm.
doing, right? And
Yeah.
that's where we receive the most, but it's hard to sit in our emotions, high
Yeah.
vibe or not. It's hard to sit and stay grounded, which is, yeah, that feels really good. When you think about, oh, I don't really have to do anything for the portal tomorrow. All I have to do is set an intention and then just sit and receive. And then just
Hmm.
sit with whatever comes up, right? Because things will come up that we'll have
Yeah.
to look at, right? In order to receive.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. Whew.
So I set the intention before I slept yesterday. I was like, okay, show me what this portal is about.
Mhm.
It has to deal with expression and being really intimate with yourself. I don't really study portals in regards to astrology, but when
Mhm.
you mentioned Jupiter, the moon, the first thing that came up to me was your emotions and your intuition is heightened
Yeah.
because what Jupiter does that it expands whatever it touches.
Mhm.
When you guys were talking about that balance, that's probably where the balance is because it's like, what is my intuition or am I being too emotional? Like sometimes it can get mixed up, right? And they're kind of showing me like moonstone. Some people can't wear moonstone because sometimes it brings out emotions that are like so crazy, but it brings out emotions that need to be healed and they can't take it. They're not able to heal at this time. But some people, when they have done the healing, they could wear it. So
Mhm.
interesting enough is like, yes, true, Jupiter is the planet of abundance. I think that it would show up in different areas of everybody's life
Mm.
because
Yeah.
depending
100%.
on like where it's conjunct in your chart. I don't know, let me give an example. If it was in the fifth house, it's like your intuition, yes, is heightened. Fifth house is about play. So you could be very lucky in receiving money, or you can be losing all your money because you went to the casino and you lost it all, right? So it's like you're driven by emotion. You're driven to do these things by emotion, but it's kind of like to find that balance. I don't know if you guys have noticed the sacral, it's reoccurring this month, like issues
Being reactivated all the time.
Yeah.
It's
I
like,
feel that too.
like,
Yeah.
and so something is going on there. I think they're trying to help. You know how you guys brought up there has to be a balance between two things. And then I was like, yeah, maybe it's like the balance of being in tune with yourself and like
mhm.
actually bringing out things that self-love in a way that is like true to yourself. Authenticity keeps
Right.
like
Yeah. That's what keeps coming to me too, authenticity.
yeah, and so I think this portal is gonna like help with that, and it's heightened. So, like as you said, like Jupiter is connected to the moon, our intuition is heightened. So, which path are we gonna choose?
Mm.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. They show me all the lanes are open, which is amazing. But what lane is actually aligned for us? And
Mm.
more importantly, what is your why? Why do you want that house with the white picket fence? It's the feeling. It's not about the house. It's about the feeling. So can we hold true to the feeling now and have it now, knowing it's on its way? And I think that's where the faith is. It's sitting in mass, it's sitting in church, knowing, let's just sit here for a second because we can't actually receive if we don't look at our stuff.
Yeah.
This is the balance of the universe saying, I'm giving you free reign to whatever you want. These are all the slot machines in the casino. You can have access to all the winnings that you want. But really, where can we take responsibility in what we need to do to balance out the
Mhm.
universe? The guide saying, okay, now you're ready to receive it because there's still some stuff that we need to look at, right?
Yeah. I feel like when you were talking about the sacral, that's where we hold shame and guilt, right? So when we think about what do I want? Is it
Hmm.
based on a should or a have to or this is just the natural next step, or do I really know what I want? And then to
Hmm.
your point, Mary Rose, why? Why do I want that? And then again, am I suppressing something or am I listening to the guidance I'm receiving and trusting, like fully trusting that I'll be okay if I lean into my truth, if I lean
Right.
into my authentic self? And your authentic self is just knowing who you are, but not being afraid of being judged for it, which
Exactly.
society has set up beautiful structures to do that, right? So it's like this month is inviting us to sit in our truth and then find the courage to express it
Mhm.
Yeah.
without feeling unsafe, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like this feeling of unsafe is what's creating a lot of anxiety and overwhelm, right?
Hmm.
Like, yeah, because the fear is real, like is real. But
It is.
Yeah.
yeah, I would love to know, what can people do as all these desires come up? Because can you imagine all these lanes are open and you're like, I
Hmm.
want this and I want this and I want this. And you don't want to say no to anything because we were taught, don't say no, otherwise you're not going to manifest all this stuff, right? But
Yeah.
it's like, okay, but where's the discernment,
Mhm.
right? So how do I
Hmm.
know if I don't know? Right. So I'd love to know what you guys think, that what can we do in December? What can we do for the rest of this month to align and connect with ourself in order to receive what's in our greatest and highest good, but then also have the courage and faith to enter the new year with that truth.
But truly, I think by truly honoring yourself, I think that's the biggest thing that really comes through and that hits home for a lot of people because, in terms of the end of the year, there's just a lot of loose ends. Essentially,
Hmm.
that people are just trying to tie up, essentially, and it creates this opening. And that's what you guys are referring to, like this opening, but this opening to for you or for anyone to co-create your own reality. And this is the thing that a lot of people don't realize is that every single moment of every single day, you're actually able to do that. But there's this vulnerability aspect of it that you actually that you mentioned, Arzine, that people are afraid to take that next step because maybe on the other side there might be judgment from other people. Maybe on the other side, it's not as green as they would have thought. But perhaps these are certain lessons that will help the soul on a soul or star soul level grow to be able to reach that life or that opportunity to bring that in within your being so then it becomes a reality essentially, right? So even when you said that they're giving all of these opportunities, there's a balance, which yes, 100% there is this balance, but it's also to say that it's bringing these opportunities because these are aspects of yourselves that really want these other opportunities to come through and to hone through. And perhaps this is also an opening to tap into some of these by actually going within by when I say honor yourself, like live a little. Do you know what I mean? Maybe you need to go outside, maybe you need to do a cold plunge or whatever, or maybe you need to like really, take time for yourself and do creative things that you actually enjoy, or you know what I mean? Like, or maybe just as simple as like a salt bath,